Alright everyone, I've had a bunch of people who wanted me to weigh in and give my thoughts on the Joe Rogan Jack Dorsey interview. I mean, probably dozens of people messaging me on various platforms. Even people that I talk to more regularly, like more of a personal context, like, oh, what did you think of this? And I'm like, I didn't want to talk about it at first, because usually it's not my forte to talk about that particular style of stuff. But here's the thing, I've got so many different things to say here. I've got so many different thoughts that are sort of competing. Because I like, first and foremost, I'll give my defense, and then I'll ream it. My defense would be this. First and foremost, I like Joe Rogan. I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he's a sellout. I don't think that that's what we're seeing here. I think we're seeing a person who feels like threatened by the lamestream media and its constant deplatforming raise, and he's like, well, you know, this is how I make my money with my show here. If I get deplatformed, it's just too much of a fucking hassle. And he's not like he supports free speech, but he's not solely dedicated to that cause. Other people have taken up that banner. One of his big things is smoking weed. So that's, it ties in with it. It's like, you know, the right to privacy, the right of people to be left alone, do what they want to do. But I mean, it's not his sole responsibility simply because he has a large audience. I see some people claiming, well, he needs to have grilled Dorsey because of his audience size. It would be helpful. Yes, it would be helpful. It would have been wonderful to see, and he probably, and judging by the reaction, probably it was a strategic mistake not to do so. But it's not specifically his responsibility, any more than, by the way, I mean, I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. A few days ago, you saw Shane Dawson, he tweets at Paul Joseph Watson, says, I like your material. Everyone acts as though the fact that he has a big audience means he's not allowed to talk to Paul Joseph Watson. He gets dogpiled by a bunch of leftists saying, no, you're not allowed to have this kind of contact, acquaintance, or enjoy his content because you have a responsibility based on the fact that you're big. How does Joe Rogan, based solely on audience size, have any responsibility to do anything within the context of an interview? But that's where my defense of him ends, and I'll say it this way. Number one, you've got the situation where the reaction was so overwhelmingly negative, he probably should have come out right away and said, okay, you know, I flubbed the interview. Yeah, maybe I'll have Zuckerberg in next. Not that he would ever agree to it. If Zuckerberg would only go on CNN, I guess. Probably wouldn't even go there. And then I'll grill him or something to make up for it. Number two, it appears that some top comments were deleted by Rogan's team. That's not a good idea, because it's very visible. When the comments you're removing are from people like Sargon, who have large audiences themselves, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of obvious what's happened. You know, it's like, they're like, well, we didn't remove our comments, they just went missing somehow. So, and part of it is this, YouTube occasionally does that on its own. Like, literally, YouTube's algorithm occasionally does scrub comments. You know, I don't know why. It takes like 24 hours, so I'll pin a comment on one of my videos, sometimes it goes missing. It's not because I delete it. I almost never delete any comments on the scope of all of my material. Basically, there were some spammers that I used to occasionally have to block and delete, but that's no longer a problem. Now YouTube's algorithm handles that for me in a slightly more draconian than desired manner, by the way. But I think Rogan should come out and say, well, you know, I flubbed the interview. And here's the thing. Jack Dorsey, it's like he's not going to do someone like Rogan any fucking favors. Jack Dorsey would love to ban all the Joe Rogans in the world. He couldn't even answer the most basic questions on the topic of censorship, and the rest was a softball interview. Now, if I'm Joe Rogan, I'm looking at the current political landscape. Again, let me just look at it from the strategic point of view, from the money point of view, from the trying to please your audience point of view. That's what we're all here for, pleasing an audience. We're not here to please ourselves. We're not here to please people who don't give a shit. We're here to please people that subscribe to the content, watch the content, share it around, they donate, they buy merchandise, and so forth. Our audience. If I'm Joe Rogan and I'm not completely blazed out of my mind at the time when I'm designing what kind of things I'm going to ask Jack Dorsey, I'm going to focus most heavily on tech censorship, and I'm going to grill it. And if he walks off the interview, or he has a problem with it, fucking so be it. I'm going to gobble up a lot more of attention for having done so, rapidly expand, and then eventually, you do hit a point where it becomes some national debate, like with InfoWars, it becomes a national debate for Silicon Valley to deplatform you. Once you hit that level where you truly have become sort of a total international brand, it's very difficult for them to justify taking you off the internet. Joe Rogan is nowhere near as edgy as the InfoWars stuff. The thing, oddly enough, they would get him for is weed. Because, I mean, if you look at YouTube's new TOS, they've cracked down on a lot of the pro-weed content. Are they going to ban, like, Joe Rogan for smoking up on his show, which he does constantly, pretty much every show? It's sort of like when you get offered a beer on, what is it, Crowder one of these shows where typically there's some alcohol involved with Rogan, it's like he's going to offer you a blunt, or he's going to offer you the bong, or something like that. And that's why, I like a lot of his content. Like, he's interviewed Artie Lang, who's one of my favorite comedians, who, by the way, is back in rehab. He's gonna die stoned. He's not gonna make it. I'm sorry, after, 30 years of being an addict, Artie Lang is too far gone. You're never gonna get him to give up the H. He's gonna end up back in rehab and prison over and over, lying about his condition. The fact is that they've got him in such long-term situations now legally with drug testing, they're inevitably gonna find drugs on him or in his system. At some point during that 6-month, year-long period that they're doing the testing, he will end up continuously in prison and rehab. His career is fundamentally over. I say that as someone who likes the dude. Yes, I think he got a bad severance from the Stern Show, among other things. He tries to do well, but he just can't. He's too much of an addict. This time it's just cocaine. I would say just fucking let him snort the coke. I don't even give a fuck. It's like his nose bleeds constantly. I'm sure that it's just old injuries. It has nothing to do with what he's doing in a contemporary sense. They did not find heroin on him, which was very, very surprising. Very, very surprising. As far as Rogan goes, though, I mean, not every... the other thing is this. The fact that we, as the alt media and sort of the internet personas of the world, the internet users of the world, don't like Jack Dorsey because of his decisions, doesn't mean that Rogan's audience doesn't consist of people who have no problem with him. Like, there are normies that watch that as well. You've got to understand from that perspective. He probably figured that the reaction wouldn't be nearly as bad. I'm sure he anticipated some negative reaction. He's like, well, I can't really grill him too hard. This is Jack Dorsey. I'm on Twitter. All these others are on Twitter. That's part of my brand, too. I need that money. I need that extra output. He probably figured there'd be some response. I don't think he expected such a tidal wave. Meanwhile, YouTube, actually, there was an article, what was it? I think 2 weeks ago, where YouTube, at least one senior manager there was like, oh, well, yeah, the dislike mobs are a big problem. We wish that users wouldn't do that. Basically organizing to dislike material. We wish that wouldn't happen, which is why dislikes appear to disappear from videos from time to time. I guess it's automatic or something. Maybe we could just remove the dislike function. Don't worry, though. We're just in the really early stages of even discussing the issue. I'm like, if you remove the dislike function from YouTube, what you're going to get is a Twitter-like debacle, where people will just comment dislike instead of pressing a button, because there won't be a dislike button. There will still be, and then you'll have ratioing instead of just like to dislike ratio as it is now, which is a lot more clean. Trust me, your comments areas will be flooded with shit if you ever get rid of the dislike button. The YouTube audience isn't like the Twitter audience. There's a totally different fucking fish. Joe Rogan should have thought better. But I'm not going to crucify the guy. I do wish his interview was actually hard-hitting. He whiffed it. It was a softball interview. It was a total letdown. I'm not surprised people fucking hated it. But at the same time, it's like, well, it is his show. Yeah. And the fact that, anyone arguing that it's his size that matters, I reject that argument totally. I would say, rather, he's part of the creator community. And so he doesn't have a responsibility, per se, but out of civic pride, you would think he'd have some impetus to go after Dorsey more and, at least follow up on his question about InfoWars that Dorsey couldn't even answer. So where were they banned? Oh, okay, next question. No, he should have said, no, really, why was Alex Jones kicked off of your site? But he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to pursue that fully because he didn't want to have to defend Alex Jones. I think he was worried, back when that happened, I think he was worried about being next in line. I think he and the Crowders and others of the world, I think they were terrified. I think they're like, well, this is a new paradigm of the internet. I'm probably next. They didn't realize that the real goal of that was to scare them into compliance. And it appears in many cases to have worked. Now, there's some people like, I'm not going to shut up about it. I'm never going to support tech censorship or turn a blind eye to it. I have a video today about BitChute getting deplatformed by Indiegogo, and it's just like fucking total bullshit. But still, a lot of these people, they have larger careers. Now, like, we're talking A-tier audience instead of, like, my size of audience. It's large, but I don't have 4 million subscribers in my own radio show. It's a little bit different. I can kind of understand from the self-employed entrepreneur standpoint. I can sort of appreciate that part of it. But I can't defend him beyond that because it was honestly a bad interview. That's about all. Peace out.